With all this talk of the fourth arc in Wings of Fire, I feel like it's a good time to get back to our roots and talk about the OGs, the Dragonets of Destiny. Is this just an excuse to show off the notebook I designed for last year's mystery box? Maybe. Don't get all up in my business about it. Anyways, today I want to talk about the main characters of the original Wings of Fire arc, the story that started it all. I've read the first arc more than any of the others, though the second is my favorite, and these characters have been a part of the series, well, forever. So, let's go over the Dragonets of Destiny. When I first read book 1, and for a long time after, I'll be honest, Clay wasn't super appealing to me as a character. He just seemed, well, kind of boring. He seemed dull. Sure, he was brave and caring and all that jazz, but I just couldn't really connect with him as a character. I'm not really into the cuddly himbo character archetype, so this doesn't surprise me. But interestingly, as I've seen more of him in later books, he's kind of started to grow on me, honestly. I feel like you can really see Clay's maturity increase throughout the series, which makes sense, of course, since he grows up a lot over the course of the 10 Pyrian books. And the more we see him as a more confident, calmer, adultier dragon, the more I like to see him on the page. To me, Clay has grown from a somewhat indecisive, nervous, self-doubting character into the complete opposite. When we first meet him, he's convinced that he's not very bright, and that he might be a monster thanks to the Guardians. And being thrust suddenly into the new and terrifying world of the war and life as a Skywing captive, he understandably spends a lot of his own POV book freaking out. And don't get me wrong, he definitely matures as a character during his book. But I actually enjoy him more in later books. As he grows older and gains more and more experiences out in the world, Clay grows in a self-confidence that's really appealing. He knows he's not a monster just because he's large and dangerous. Those are attributes he puts to use protecting his friends. He goes from being considered not very bright to gaining experience with every fight he navigates. I just feel like he's grown so much as a character, and although his POV book isn't my favorite, by the time we're seeing chill older brother Clay in the second arc, I love to see it. His naivete has been tempered by hardship, and his relationships have been tested by strain. I think of all 5 Dragonets of Destiny, his character arc is the most satisfying to me. Tsunami was my favorite character for a long time, until Keebly came around anyway. And it's not hard at all to see why, since she's so easy to relate to for me. Especially in her POV book, we see Tsunami as a sister who's struggling to balance her own aggressive, bossy, and sometimes abrasive personality with the dragons in her life. Brash, loud, with a tendency to act before she thinks. Yeah, Tsunami as a character was really appealing to me as a kid. These days I relate with Glory more, but Tsunami is always going to hold a special place in my heart. A lot of Tsunami's arc focused on her learning what it means to be a leader. The subtle difference between simply being bossy and giving orders versus the thoughtful, individual-focused mentality of a good leader. Although there's definitely no true leader in the Dragonets of Destiny, Tsunami has a very take-charge personality, and so much of her book deals with her struggling to make her friends listen to her. Over the course of that arc, though, we see Tsunami shift from wanting her friends to listen to her just because, to using her commanding tendencies to protect and guide her siblings. A good leader isn't someone who enjoys the prestige of their orders being followed. They're someone who spends all their time and energy protecting and guiding those they lead. And by the end of book 2, Tsunami has begun to understand the difference between those two options. Also, I love how honest she is. Tsunami does know herself. She's not afraid to call it how it is. Her continued loud lack of appreciation for anything and everything prophecy-related is a constant source of laughter for me. Glory never stood out to me a lot as a kid, but these days I find her so interesting. Her position in the Dragonets, the unwanted spare, constantly told she was useless and lazy and unimportant, is unique amidst the rest of the Dragonets. So, I find it really poetic that the most useless of the Prophecy Dragonets ends up being queen of not one, but 2 dragon tribes. If only Kestrel could see her now. I find it kind of cool, too, that even while the other 4 Dragonets of Destiny are off running their school, sticking to each other's sides, and even living back in the same part of the world they grew up in a cave, Glory is by herself in the rainforest navigating an entirely different and new lifestyle. Not that setting up and running a multi-tribe school is in any way easy or simple, but the Dragonets are all over at Jade Mountain doing their thing, while Glory is building her own life, her own legacy in her kingdom. That's what's always stood out about Glory to me, her lack of concern for the opinions of others. I once heard that when it comes to aspects of your personality, the people who matter don't care, and the people who care don't matter. I think Glory is the perfect example of this. The dragons who matter, Deathbringer, her friends, Kinkajou, they all know Glory's virtues. Her kindness, her determination to always do the right thing, her perseverance, her quick wit. Anyone else, like the dragons who raise them or those from other tribes who sniff at Rainwings, she doesn't let that get to her. Glory's life could have been very different if she allowed the taunts and expectations of the Guardians get to her as a Dragonet. She could have been obsessed with the opinions of others, indecisive, timid. Instead, she learned from a young age that not everyone deserves to have an opinion about you. On a slightly different note, I love how Glory returned home to find her tribe as a shadow of their former selves, and she got right to work about it. She saved the Rainwings who'd gone missing. She's putting in the work day after day to help the Rainwings learn how to defend themselves, how to grow as a tribe, how to recover from their slide into the minimum effort. Glory didn't have to do that. She literally has no dog in this fight. She didn't even grow up with these dragons. But she stepped in because nobody else would, and she's determined to do right by the Rainwings. Her pursuit of justice is something I think we can all learn from. Starflight was, is, and unfortunately always will be kind of uninteresting to me. I'm sorry, guys. I know he has fans out there. I have tried over and over to enjoy his character more. I really have. And just because I personally don't find him super engaging, it doesn't mean he's a bad character. It's just a personal taste thing. But just because he's not the most enjoyable for me to follow as a POV character, that doesn't mean I don't have opinions on him. Starflight's story, to me, is a story about growing up. Yes, I know in some way every character arc is about growing up. But Starflight is a really overt example of it. A big part of his arc to me is having to put away his old childhood crush on Sunny so that they can both continue growing. What says growing up more than someone who's clung to this crush for years in secret, finally realizing that it's not going to happen and letting himself move on? Now, I'm not trying to trip into the Sunnyflight versus Fate Speaker argument here. I'm just talking purely from a canon standpoint. But it goes beyond the romance plot, because Starflight is the first main character to suffer a truly massive injury. There are, of course, injuries throughout Wings of Fire. Clay later gets bit by a dragonbite viper and ends up with a lifelong limp. Kinkajou gets put into a coma briefly, etc. But Starflight is the first main character to really get hurt in an inescapable and irreparable way. And Starflight isn't one of the tough characters like Tsunami or Sundew or Winter. He's bookish and nervous and at times a little cowardly. And being blind isn't a terrible thing on its own, but I think we can all agree that going blind via lava to the face is a painful and shocking and traumatizing experience. But I think this triggers a big moment of growth for Starflight. He has to relearn how his life works without his vision. He has to rely on his friends more than ever. And all of this contributes to the more mature, empathetic, world-weary version of Starflight that we see later on. He begins his arc in Book 1 fairly arrogant, but as he gets out into the real world and suffers the embarrassment and pain of unrequited love, along with the literal agony of lava to the face amidst everything else that happens in the first arc, he learns to care about the dragons around him, and that secondhand knowledge isn't the deciding factor in every situation. So anyway, even if Starflight is my least favorite of the Dragonets of Destiny, he's in no way a weak character, poorly written, or uninteresting. There's a lot to see in his growth towards maturity, too. Finally, Sunny. Sunny is interesting to me because she goes from being this sort of baby sister figure to a more maternal figure. Maybe this is something only I picked up on, I don't know, but in the second arc she definitely feels very maternal towards her students, even though the age gap is relatively small. And that's great because a lot of her POV book is focused on everyone refusing to take her seriously. So to later see her as an established authority figure, calmly confident in herself and respected by those around her, yeah, it makes me happy. If Clay is self-confidence, Tsunami is leadership, Glory is justice, and Starflight is maturity, to me, Sunny's the heart of their group. The emotional, loving, warm core of their odd little family. Through everything they experienced together, Sunny kept the flame of hope alive. She was never willing to compromise on that. And I think people underestimate how much strength it takes to stay optimistic in the face of something like, say, a decades-old war or the like. Sunny isn't just happy. She's someone who actively, every day, makes the choice to be kind and optimistic when it'd be easier to be less than that. In the same way that Glory pursues justice, Sunny pursues hope. So I think it was fitting for her to close out Arc 1 and wrap up the War of Sandwing Succession. So yeah, even though the first arc is over a decade old at this point, which is wild, the Dragonets of Destiny still have so much to offer to readers. After all, they're the characters who got us all into this series in the first place. If we hadn't fallen in love with Glory's sarcasm, Tsunami's brashness, and Clay's caring heart, we'd never have experienced Winter's growth, Peril's redemption, or Keebly's wit. Originally, I just wanted to have a few dragons on this notepad because I didn't want it to seem crowded, but I quickly decided to go ahead and squeeze all the Arc 1 dragons in there. After all, if there's one thing we learn in Arc 1, it's that these guys are a ride-or-die package deal. They come as a set. If you want to get one of these notepads, feel free to use the link in the description to check out my store where they're available to buy. I don't think I'll be printing a second run once these sell out since they're quite expensive, so they'll only be available until the stock I have sells. Go ahead and let me know who your favorite Dragonet of Destiny is, and why in the comments section. Currently my favorite is Glory because she's so intriguing to me these days, but Tsunami was my favorite for a long time before that. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing so you can catch my next one. Thanks for watching, and y'all have a blessed day.
The zero gravity keeps